Ryan sat at the polished oak table in his childhood home, 23 and fresh from college. His diploma still crisp in its frame upstairs, his stomach churning as the clink of silverware filled the quiet. He'd rehearsed this moment for months, the words tumbling in his mind, a confession he'd carried since high school, a truth he'd tucked behind late-night study sessions and forced smiles. His parents moved around him, his mom bustling with a pot of stew, her apron stained with years of family dinners, his dad carving bread with the same steady hands that had taught him to ride a bike. It was a Sunday night, warm and familiar, the kind of evening he'd picked to say it, "I'm gay." His voice breaking the hum, soft but firm, his eyes darting to his mom, expecting a nod, a tear, something soft to catch him. Instead, the room froze, his mother's spoon clattering against the table, her hand jerking back as if burned, her face twisting, eyes narrowing into slits that cut him deep. "Don't pull that stunt in my house," she snapped, voice low, icy, a blade he hadn't braced for. Ryan's breath caught, his chest tightening. "Mom, I just wanted you to know me," he stammered, but she stood, looming over him. "You think I want this? You think I raised you for this?" Her gaze was venom, a look that turned him to dirt under her feet, a son she'd cradled now, a stranger she despised. He'd pictured her understanding, maybe crying, but not this, not the disgust carving lines into her face. The rejection sharper than any shout, a wound he felt bloom in his ribs. His dad stayed silent. Fork paused midair, his sigh heavy as he pushed his chair back. "I need a minute," he muttered, retreating to the den, the door clicking shut, leaving Ryan alone with her fury. She leaned close, her breath hot. "You're not telling the family, not a soul, you hear me? No pictures, no posts, nothing online. You keep this buried." Her words a command, a chain snapping tight around him. Ryan's throat burned. "Okay," he whispered, voice small, broken, his agreement a reflex to stop the storm. But inside he shattered, pieces of hope scattering across the table, the meal untouched, the air thick with a loss he couldn't name. She turned away, scraping plates into the sink, her back a wall. "We don't talk about this again," she said final, a decree that locked his truth in a cage he hadn't built. He sat there, the stew cold, his hands trembling. The home he'd known twisting into something foreign. A place where love came with conditions he couldn't meet. His dad's absence stung, a quiet retreat that left him exposed. But his mom's eyes, those cold, piercing daggers, carved the deepest mark. A look that said he'd failed her, tainted her, a son she'd rather erase than see. He'd wanted to be free, to breathe, but her glare pinned him down, a weight he'd carry out the door that night. His steps heavy on the porch, his heart a bruise pulsing with every beat. He'd come out expecting a bridge, a hand, but found a chasm instead. His mother's scorn, a shove into a silence he'd promised to keep, a vow that broke him more than her words ever could. Ryan drove away, the house shrinking in his rear view, the dinner a scar he'd wear, a boy who'd bared his soul only to watch it trampled under his mother's heel. She'd looked at him like dirt, a judgment he couldn't unsee, a rejection that echoed in the quiet of his car, a truth he'd dared to speak, now a burden he'd bear alone. He'd lost more than a meal that night. He'd lost the family he'd thought he had, a fracture sealed with a promise he'd never wanted to make, a wound that bled beneath his skin as he faced a road he didn't know how to travel. Ryan woke each dawn in the cramped apartment he shared with Miles, the buzz of the city seeping through cracked windows. A fragile haven he'd stitched together after that night his family turned to ash. At 23, he'd found a job at a dusty bookstore, stacking novels, ringing up customers. His college degree, gathering dust in a drawer, his days a steady hum, shadowed by the fracture back home. He'd promised his mom to bury his truth, no whispers to aunts or cousins, no footprints online, a vow he'd kept with a silence that aided him. But she'd gone further, reshaping his world to match her denial. She'd call, her voice sharp through the line. "How's your roommate doing?" she'd ask, the word a calculated jab. Miles stripped to a stranger in her script. "He's my boyfriend, Mom," Ryan would reply, weary, firm, but she'd plow ahead. Stop that nonsense, as if his love were a stain she could wipe away. Her control tightened like a noose, texts pinging late. Delete those photos. I don't want the family asking questions. Her eyes scouring his social media, zeroing in on snapshots, him and Miles at a lake, a diner, their hands brushing over coffee, all flagged as betrayals. Ryan tried once, "It's who I am," his voice trembling, but she'd cut him off. "Not in my house it isn't. Take them down or I'll do it." Her command, a whip cracking across the Miles. He'd sit on their sagging couch, phone in hand, Miles murmuring, "You don't owe her this." But Ryan's shoulders slumped. She won't let it go. And the pictures vanished. A chunk of his joy erased. A surrender that left him hollowed out. She'd call back. "Better, keep it clean." Her satisfaction a shackle. His resistance crumbling under the weight of her relentless will. A mother who'd rather scrub him blank than see him true. 2 years dragging. Her rejection at a slow drip of acid, her calls fading, but biting deeper when they came. Each one a fresh slash across his heart. She'd blocked his number after a blowout. "You picked him over us," she'd spat, the line dead, a wall slamming down between them. Ryan stood in their kitchen, phone slipping, Miles catching it. "She'll soften," he'd say, but Ryan shook his head. "She never will." The truth sour, a wound festering with every message she ignored. He'd dial his dad, late when the house might be calm. "It's me, Dad," he'd whisper into voicemails, voice raw, aching. But his father's replies were curt. "She's not there yet." A dodge that left Ryan stranded, her grip a barricade his dad wouldn't breach. He'd perch by the window, rain streaking the panes, the sting of their absence a quiet throb. A son stretching for a thread that slipped through his fingers. He forged a life with Miles despite it, their place a tapestry of secondhand chairs, shared meals gone wrong, nights wrapped in each other, a love that propped him up when his family let him collapse. They'd roam the streets, fingers grazing, a soft rebellion against her edicts. But the warmth came tinged with sorrow, a ghost trailing every laugh. He'd flip through old albums, his mom's grin locked in faded prints, a tenderness he'd lost, and ponder how she could rewrite him so effortlessly, how boyfriend turned to roommate, how his days became her delusion. She dubbed his life not real, a verdict that rang in his ears, a dismissal he battled to shake, but it stuck. A thorn lodged deep, a hurt he hid behind every forced smile at the bookstore counter. Ryan bore that scar through the months, the shop's stillness a balm, Miles's rock, but the rejection smoldered, a flame she'd sparked and left a sear. He'd sit alone some nights, their apartment hushed, tracing a mug's rim, her words looping, "You picked him," a blame she'd sown, a lie he refused to wear. He'd honored her demand, locked his truth tight, but she'd locked him out, a mother who'd sooner lose him than face him, a fortress he'd stop storming. 2 years of quiet stretched wide, his dad a whisper, his mom a judge, and Ryan pressed on, bruised but alive, a life she spurned but couldn't snuff, a strength blooming in the cracks she'd carved, a fire she'd never grasped. Ryan stood on the porch of his childhood home that Christmas Eve, 25 now, his breath fogging in the crisp December air, his hand hesitating over the doorbell as Miles squeezed his arm. "We can still leave," he whispered, eyes warm, steady. 2 years had passed since his mom had blocked him, 2 years of silence broken only by his dad's cautious call a week ago. "Come for dinner, bring Miles, let's try." His voice tentative, a thread of hope Ryan couldn't resist. He'd wrestled with it, pacing their apartment, the ache of rejection warring with a flicker of longing. "Maybe she's softened," he'd told Miles, who'd nodded. "If you're sure," and now here they were, stepping into a house that felt both familiar and foreign, the scent of pine and cinnamon tugging at memories he'd tried to bury. The living room glowed with twinkling lights, a tree towering in the corner. His dad rising from the couch. "Good to see you, son." His hug brief but firm, a crack in the wall Ryan hadn't felt in years. His mom emerged from the kitchen, apron tied tight, her smile thin. "You made it," she said, voice clipped, eyes flicking to Miles, a shadow crossing her face before she turned away. They sat, the table set with care, plates gleaming, the clink of forks tentative as small talk stumbled along. "Works fine," Ryan offered. "Miles got a promotion." And his dad nodded. "That's great," while his mom stayed quiet, her gaze fixed on her plate, a tension simmering beneath the holiday cheer. 15 minutes in, it felt almost normal, a fragile truce. Ryan's chest loosening, a hope blooming that maybe, just maybe, they could mend this. Then she stood, her chair scraping. "I'll get the lasagna," she muttered, disappearing into the kitchen. The clatter of pans a distant hum until she returned, tray in hand, steam rising from the dish, her steps deliberate. Ryan glanced up, smiling. "Smells good, Mom." But her eyes locked on Miles, hard, unyielding. And in a heartbeat, the tray tipped, the lasagna sliding, a cascade of sauce and cheese splashing across his shirt, soaking him, the room gasping into silence. Miles froze, hands hovering, sauce dripping onto the floor, his face pale, stunned, while she towered over him, tray clattering down. "I warned you," she shouted, voice shrill, piercing. "I told you not to bring this here." The air turned to ice, his dad's fork dropping. "Mary, what the hell?" he rasped. But she didn't flinch, her glare a storm. "He doesn't belong at my table." Ryan's world tilted, his breath gone, his eyes locked on Miles, shirt ruined, trembling but mute, rising slow, stepping back. "I'll clean up," he murmured, voice shaking, retreating to the hall. Ryan snapped, tears flooding. "Why would you do that?" he yelled. Standing, chair toppling. "Why would you hurt him, the person I love?" His voice broke, raw, a sob tearing free, his hands shaking as he faced her. The room a blur, his dad reaching. "Ryan, sit." But he couldn't, wouldn't. "No, Dad, she doesn't get to do this." His mom's face twisted. "You brought him here. You shamed us," she spat, unyielding, a wall of rage he'd never breach. Her words a slap that echoed the night he'd come out, a rejection doubled down in sauce-stained cruelty. He wept openly, tears streaking. "I thought you'd try, I thought you'd see us," he choked. "But you hate me. You hate who I am." His dad stood. "That's enough, both of you." Voice firm, but Ryan shook his head. "No, it's not. She ruined it. She always does." His chest heaving, the dinner a wreckage. Lasagna pooling on the rug, a symbol of her refusal to bend. Miles returned, shirt damp, eyes down. "We should go," he said, soft, steady, and Ryan nodded. "Yeah," wiping his face, his voice a whisper. "I'm done here." They moved to the door, his dad following. "I'm sorry, son." But Ryan didn't turn, the sting too fresh. His mom's silence a final blow as they stepped into the night. The warmth of the house, a lie left behind. Ryan clung to Miles in the car, the heater humming, his sobs quieting. The dinner a wound reopened, a hope dashed under his mother's hands. She'd poured her anger onto the man he loved, a rejection louder than words, a scar he'd carry from that table. A son who'd dared to dream of peace and found only chaos. A love she'd tried to drown in a dish meant to bring them together. Ryan stood at the threshold of his childhood home that Christmas Eve, the night air biting his skin, his hand on the doorknob, ready to leave forever after his mother's outburst had left Miles drenched in lasagna and his heart in shards. The living room glowed behind him, the tree's lights mocking the ruin of their dinner. His breath ragged as he turned to go, Miles waiting by the car, a shadow of patience in the dark. His dad's voice stopped him, low, urgent. "Ryan, wait." His hand gripping the frame, a plea cutting through the chaos. "Don't walk out yet." Ryan paused, his chest tight. "Why not, Dad? She made it clear I'm nothing here." His words sharp, brittle, but his father stepped closer. "It's not just you she's hurting. It's bigger than that," a tremor in his tone Ryan hadn't heard before. They moved to the den, the door shutting soft, sealing out his mom's distant clatter in the kitchen, her fury still simmering in the air. His dad sank into an armchair, face lined with a weariness Ryan didn't recognize. "Sit, please," he said, and Ryan did, wary, his legs trembling from the fight, the sting of sauce still sharp in his memory. "Your mom's not who you think," his dad began, voice low, steady. "She's been running from something longer than you've been alive." Ryan frowned. "What are you talking about?" His throat dry and his father leaned forward, eyes shadowed. You had a sister, Emily. She was 19 when we lost her, and your mom's never been the same since. The words landed like stones, heavy, cold, a truth Ryan had never touched. A sister? He echoed, stunned, his mind reeling. Why didn't I know? His dad pulled a photo from his wallet, creased and faded. A girl with Ryan's eyes smiling in a sundress, her hair catching the light, a letter tucked behind it, ink smudged by time. She wrote this before she took her life, he said, handing it over, his voice cracking. She was gay too, and your mom forced her to marry a man she didn't love, said it'd fix her, save the family name. Ryan's fingers shook as he unfolded the note, Emily's scrawl spilling out. I can't live your lie, Mom, I'm sorry. A goodbye that tore at him, a sister he'd never met, a mirror to his own fight. She jumped from the bridge that night, his dad went on, and your mom blamed herself. But instead of facing it, she buried it, swore we'd never speak of her, turned that guilt into a wall she's kept up ever since. Ryan's breath hitched. She did this to me too, he whispered, the photo trembling in his grasp. She's repeating it. Why? His dad's eyes glistened. She's terrified, Ryan, of the whispers, the judgment, more than she ever cared about Emily's happiness or yours. She thinks hiding it protects us all, but it's torn us apart. He stood, pacing. I stayed quiet then, afraid I'd lose her, lose everything. But watching her tonight, pouring that dish on Miles, I saw Emily's face again. I can't keep this in anymore. Ryan's voice rose. You let her hurt me, Dad, for years to protect her pride. His dad stopped, head bowed. I know. I failed you both, but I'm done hiding it. You deserve the truth. She's hurt everyone to shield herself. The room spun, Ryan clutching the photo, Emily's smile a ghost staring back. A sister lost to the same chains his mom had tried to bind him with. A secret that reframed every cold glance, every demand to erase Miles. She never told me, he said, voice breaking. She let me think I was the only one, the failure, when she'd already lost her to this. His dad nodded. She couldn't face it. Still can't. But I won't let her bury you too, not anymore. Ryan's tears fell, hot, silent. I needed you to say this years ago, he choked, the weight of Emily's story crashing into his own. A family fractured by a lie his mom had spun to save face. A wound deeper than the lasagna. A betrayal rooted in a past he'd never known. He stood, the photo in his pocket, his dad's confession a lifeline through the storm, a crack in the silence that had choked them all. His mom's pride had cost Emily her life, had nearly cost him his, and now it lay bare. A truth his dad had finally voiced, a bridge to a sister he'd mourn without meeting. Ryan walked out, Miles waiting, the house behind him a mausoleum of secrets, his heart raw but stirring, a son no longer alone in the dark his mother had cast. Ryan sat in his apartment a week after that shattered Christmas, 25 now. The photo of Emily still tucked in his pocket, her smile a quiet companion as he traced the edges of a wound his family had carved. Miles moved around him, brewing coffee. You're quiet today, he'd said, but Ryan just nodded. The weight of his dad's confession, a sister lost, a mother's fear still settling in his bones. The phone rang, firing sharp against the morning hush, his dad's voice crackling through. Turn on the TV tonight, Ryan, you're coming with me. Firm, urgent, a tone Ryan hadn't heard since he was a kid. What's this about, he asked, but his dad only said, you'll see, and hung up, leaving Ryan staring at the receiver, a mix of dread and curiosity curling in his gut. That evening, he stood beside his father in a local studio, lights glaring, cameras humming. His dad, a familiar figure in their town, a conservative community leader who'd once chaired potlucks and prayer meets. The host introduced him, a father's story, and Ryan's breath caught as his dad stepped forward. No notes, just a man unburdened. My son, Ryan's gay, and I've failed him, he began, voice steady, raw. I failed my daughter too, Emily, who took her life at 19 because we forced her to hide who she was. The room stilled, Ryan's knees weak, his dad's words a thunderclap. My wife and I chose pride over love. We lost her, and I almost lost him too. I'm done with that silence. He turned to Ryan, eyes wet. You deserve to exist, son. All of you do. A declaration that rippled through the air. A stand Ryan never dreamed he'd witness. The broadcast sparked a storm, phones buzzing, neighbors split, some cheering, about time, others sneering. He's gone soft. But Ryan felt it, a shift. His truth no longer a shadow. His dad's voice lifting it into the light. His mom watched from home, silent, her face unreadable when he saw her next. I don't agree, but I won't stop him, she'd muttered. A crack in her wall, not wide, but there, a grudging step back from the war she'd waged. Ryan didn't push, didn't beg, her lasagna-stained rage still fresh. But his dad met him for coffee. I should have spoken sooner, he'd said. And Ryan nodded. Yeah, but you did now. A bridge rebuilt, shaky but standing, a father no longer mute. He poured that fire into art, organizing an exhibit weeks later. Family and Us, a gallery of LGBTQ+ lives, photos raw and real. The first frame, his own Miles that Christmas night, sauce streaking his shirt, a grin breaking through the mess, a snapshot of love unbowed. The room filled, strangers nodding, whispering, "That's courage." And Ryan stood beside it, his dad there too, quiet, proud, a presence that softened the edges of years lost. His mom didn't come, but she didn't call to curse it either. A silence less heavy, a space where he could breathe. He'd built this, a life, a voice, from the ruins she tried to bury, a testament to Emily, to Miles, to himself, a man who'd stepped out of her shadow and into his own. Ryan walked home that night, the city alive around him, his steps lighter, his dad's words a shield. We deserve to exist, echoing in his chest. A truth she couldn't drown, a fight his father had joined late but loud. His mom's heart hadn't turned. Not fully, but the cage she'd locked him in had cracked. And he stood free, not forgiven, not yet, but seen. A son who'd claimed his place, a love she couldn't erase, a legacy of scars and strength he'd carry forward. What wall did someone break for you? Share below. If Ryan's stand moves you, hit that like, share it with a soul who's fought to be seen, and subscribe to Heartstories. We're here for the brave. Join us. Tap that bell.